Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, The Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. And good morning, welcome into this edition of Scholasticks on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca. I'm your host, Graeme the G-Show Forsyth. We're presented by Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, as you saw by the commercial. To open things up here for episode 8, we're also brought to you by Terrico, Movement, Fitness, and Performance, Elite Prospects, and Goaltenders. No guests joining the show today, but we are going to be taking you through the month that was October, the best moments from it that we were able to capture. There was a lot, so we didn't pick every single one, but we narrowed things down. Maybe some things were missing, but hey, the beauty of it is it can all be seen on our U-Screen platform, which today we're going to have a game between Kildonan East and the Pinawa Panthers taking on the Reavers at Gateway Rec Center. That should be good. We're also adding on a game on Friday. It's going to be Windsor Park and Murdoch on our schedule as... Yeah, I mixed up my dates. I thought it was John Taylor and Murdoch today, but that's tomorrow. We're going to be in Stonewall tomorrow for Gabrielle Roy and Stonewall. The Rams taking on the Cavaliers. All matchups should be very exciting this week as our game day coverage continues to ramp up. But as for this episode, I'm going to take you through the standings, latest scores, stats from throughout the league, the upcoming games, and I'm also going to take you through all three divisions, and we're going to put teams into tiers in terms of favorites, championship contenders, teams that are on the cusp, and we also titled one of the sections a work in progress because, I think all teams in these leagues have potential. That was shown in the Husky Classic, for example, when the John Taylor Pipers took down the Stonewall Rams. That's a C Division team taking down a B Division team, right? And still think those teams have a chance to maybe work their way up into the next tiers, but right now, where you're going to see certain teams, that's where they're going to play. So we're going to go through all of that. We're also going to show you highlights in this episode, the best moments from the Husky Classic, and some other things, analysis, and more in this edition of Scholasticks, episode 8 of the official Winnipeg High School Hockey League podcast. We're going to start off with highlights from the most recent games we've covered here in the past week, so last week and the one game we covered yesterday, but we're actually going to start off with yesterday's game, as this was a good one. Shaftesbury and Garden City going at it. Shaftesbury coming in with a 1-4 record. Garden City 2-1. Boston Zaglin ends up putting home the puck in front of goaltender and Sebastian Aguiar to make it 1-0 for Shaftesbury. later on, a bit of trouble at the blue line in the latter half of the first period as Dallas Spearman walks behind the Garden City defense and ends up putting it home to put his Shaftesbury Titans up by a score of 2-0. But into the second period, as the lead only 2 for Shaftesbury. Now Marcus Betts doing one of the many things he does best. So elusive, able to walk in and snipe after pulling off a beautiful move to get this game within 1. They tie it up near the end of the second period. Garden City working it around on the power play in the third period, and again, Marcus Betts being a difference maker. Received that pass from Murdoch, sent it across to Pimentel, and Betts would end up scoring the empty netter in this game. 5-3, the final in favor of the Garden City Gophers. They move on to 3-2-1, while for Shaftesbury, the Titans, they end up falling to 1-5 on the season, as they've now lost 4 games in a row. We'll get into the upcoming schedule for them and Garden City in just a little bit here, but moving into last week's action, as the only A-Division game we covered, it was the Sturgeon Heights Huskies taking on the St. Paul's Crusaders. Rylan Murphy would net his first of, a couple in this game, as you'll see coming up. Sturgeon Heights was 2-0 heading into this one. St. Paul's was 0-4, winless, and they hadn't even scored a goal yet, but they put one on the board, and then here again with Grant Newton pulling off a beautiful no-move to put one past the Sturgeon Heights netminder, and just like that, St. Paul's, they'd have their first lead of the season, but Sturgeon Heights wouldn't go away in this game. In fact, later on into the third period, it would be tied up, in this top line doing what they do best in terms of Jace Anderson walking in, kicks it back out to Rylan Murphy, as that's his second of the game, and it ends up being the game-winning goal, as Sturgeon Heights would move on to 3-0, or 2-0 at the time, I guess, as they would end up winning their next matchup to improve to 3-0 on the season, as that was against Shaftesbury actually last Thursday at Keith Bodley Arena. Today, Sturgeon Heights takes on River East at Gateway Arena Red, where we're also going to be there for a C Division team in the Price Division, as it's going to be the Reavers taking on Pinawa, the Panthers, as already mentioned. But yeah, talking about Sturgeon Heights, I guess to start things off, as I'll mention them a bit more coming up here, of course, in this October review episode, as it is, of course, November 4th today. But yeah, Jace Anderson, Rylan Murphy, and Easton Therian, they all play on the same line together, and this line has been doing pretty much everything so far for Sturgeon Heights. So the fact that these goal scorers, who, when taking a look at the only players who put the puck in the back of the net, the only other forward outside of Jace Anderson and Rylan Murphy has been Sam Kotz, and then Hudson Hughes, a defenseman, has 2 goals. Anderson with 3 on the season, Murphy with 4 on the season. They were instrumental in that victory against St. Paul's, and all season long they've been instrumental to this team's success, whether that's been in regular season play in the short amount of time that we've been able to see them so far, or whether that's been at the Husky Classic, as this team ended up going to the final in large part thanks to that top line. So Sturgeon Heights, one of the few remaining undefeated teams in the A Division, as we'll take a look at that division right away, just showing you the standings. Actually, that's the Husky Classic, of course we'll be getting into. But yeah, these are how the A Division standings shake out so far. As for Vincent Massey, they improved to 4-0 yesterday, as they ended up taking down the Lord Selkirk Royals. But as for Sturgeon Heights, as you can see, they're 3-0. 13 goals for, 4 goals against. This team, you got to give them credit. They've been defending pretty well so far, helping out their goaltender, and their goaltenders have been making big saves. As for St. Paul's, they remain as one of the sole winless teams, as them and Westwood are 0-4 to start off the season. But I think for St. Paul's, that's huge for them to at least get on the board last week against a team like Sturgeon Heights, who of course is near the top of the standings to start off this season. Here's how last week's action went. If we take a look at, or I guess this is 2 weeks ago, actually, at this point, as in terms of this week in the games to start things off, as mentioned, Vincent Massey 4-2 victory over Selkirk, and Garden City with that 5-3 win over Shaftesbury. St. Paul's, Westwood in action today, so either way, a team is going to be coming away with a victory at the Hockey for All Centers. That game goes at 3:40. There's 2 games in total today in the A Division, 1 game tomorrow, and then 4 on Thursday to end off this week's action in the Platinum Promotions Division. But as we move on to some more highlights, moving into another A Division team we actually saw in action last week. As I lied to you, we had 2 Platinum Promotions Divisions game, 1 Price Division game, as look at that rip from number 13 in Chase Bridges as he puts that one-time blast past Olsen Mesa to give the Royals their first lead of the game. Lord Selkirk would end up scoring actually 5 unanswered in this one as the draw won back, and a snipe there from Beasley to put his team up 3-1 at the time in the first period. Lots of scoring between these two sides, but as mentioned, 5 unanswered goals from Lord Selkirk, but Westwood would end up pushing back. Bullard takes a nice rip from the top of the left face-off circle, beating Giroux. And they weren't quite done yet, as this puck gets worked around, and it ends up all the way back to the player who ends up winning that draw for Westwood, as Taylor would put it into the back of the net. It wouldn't be quite enough, though, as they would just fall short in this one, as at the time, and they still remain this way. Westwood winless in this 2025-2026 campaign so far. Is just trying to confirm it off the top of my head. They don't have numbers on their roster, which is quite annoying. But it was number 9 for Westwood who ended up scoring the goal. And I guess I can just do this, go to their games, and take a look. But yeah, this is a team that ended up, of course, making it to the division championship last season. And by the way, yeah, that goal was scored by Braxton Taylor, number 9 for the Westwood Warriors. But when taking a look at their roster this season, as we'll show you where we'll have Westwood coming up here. As they don't have their birth years on here, which is frustrating, quite strange actually. So we go to a commercial break. We're going to sort this out. I'll be right back on this edition of the Scholasticks Podcast, the Winnipeg High School Hockey League podcast here on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca. Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. So I just noticed I was muted, but welcome back to the show, everybody. Showing you standings from the A Division once again as Lord Selkirk earned their first win, and those highlights we just showed you from them in Westwood. And for Westwood, a team that, of course, is very young this year compared to last year. They only have 5 players graduating out of the program, so that's 5 grade 12s in total for this team. A team that I think, given how young they are this season, given how things have started off, this is a year that's going to be filled with some growing pains. It's going to be a year with bumps in the road that they didn't deal with last year, right? And they didn't necessarily have their strongest showing at the Husky Classic against top-end teams that they played against. And I think for Westwood, when you look at the talent they have and the resiliency that they showed against Lord Selkirk, that's a step in the right direction. And for those young players, for example, a player who came up huge in that third period, and Braxton Taylor scored that 4th goal for Westwood, as you saw. He's a 2010 born player, so he's only in grade 10, grade 10, and there's quite a few players like that. They got a good core of grade 11s too, it seems like. And for this Westwood Warriors team, a year where I think they're gonna learn a lot and grow from it this season. But as for one more set of highlights to show you, as this was from the Price Division, both teams searching for their first win here in the Reavers and the Windsor Park Royals. In fact, both of these teams were the last 2 place teams in the Price Division last season. But the Reavers getting it started in actually their first goal of the season in general, as they were shut out in their first 2 games. But answering back would be Windsor Park, as Nicholas Jones puts one in the back of the net past Patton. But later on in this game, as the Reavers get back to the lead and on a 2-on-1 opportunity, that's put into the back of the net, as they would go up 3-1, then 4-1 a bit later on in this matchup. As for the Reavers into the win column for the first time this season, they'll be back in action, of course, today against the Pinawa Panthers. As let's take a look at that division right now, shall we? As for the Price Division, show you Niverville and Lorette start off as the heavyweights, both undefeated, and look at the way they've been doing it. Lorette's had arguably the best goaltending in the league to start off so far this year, and we'll show you the name of the player who's been doing his thing very shortly. But for Niverville, they've really been the story. I mean, that goal differential is disgustingly good. 43 goals for in 6 games played is an absurd average to start off a year, and I mean, we'll see if they can maintain it. They're averaging 7.2 goals per game right now, and not only that, but are only allowing 2 goals against per game, so they've been defending equally as well. But that offense has just been unbelievable. As for Warren, finalists last year, it's a pretty strong start to the year for this group, as they may be a bit younger, but the skill's still there for this team. As the way they started off the weekend, they end up winning 4-1 over Windsor Park, as of course for this Royal squad, one of the only 3 winless teams remaining in the Price Division. We got some good ones on tap, though, this week. John Taylor, Murdoch, McKay. That's a game that I thought was going to be today, but in fact, it isn't. It's tomorrow. Loaded Friday schedule here in the league, as, just taking a look at where Edward Schreier is. They're going to be going up against some really good opponents, and it's a chance for them to prove themselves against teams like Lorette. And then they play the newcomers in Lundar, who, I think that's always a challenge. A team that is winless, that of course, may give it everything they got against you. You got to bring your best. Warren Pinawa, as well, as that's going to be a game played out in rural Manitoba. The only city game is going to be Windsor Park, Murdoch, McKay, which we will be carrying on the network. But for Niverville, I mean, how do you stop this team right now, which has 3 players averaging over 2 points per game, and then another 2 that are over 1.6 points per game at 1.7 each? Absolutely disgusting how ridiculous the talent is on this year's Niverville team to start things off. And then, as mentioned, Carter Ellick for Lorette. He's got 2 shutouts, a 3-0 record, a 9.77 save percentage. Just a credit to Lorette's defense so far this year to start things off, as they've, Alex only faced 43 shots. I think a goaltender. Some like to face a bit more volume, but would like to ask Alec how he feels about that, playing against such a defensively sound Lorette team to start off this season. Mason Clausen for Warren. He's been really solid too. 2 shutouts, a 9.83 save percentage. We'll see if those 2 can keep it up as the season goes along. So many good goaltenders in this top 5 here. Be sure to visit winnipeghshl.ca for all the details. We're going to be getting into, division rankings, I guess, coming up, the tiers we were talking about, that I was talking about. Before we do that, though, I want to take you through some of the best moments so far from this year in our Winnipeg High School Hockey League coverage, as we start off with the very first game we ended up broadcasting in Bellevaux Steinbach, in the beautiful new arena in Steinbach. It's absolutely incredible. Probably the nicest rink in the province. That's not the Canada Life Center. I think there's a pretty good argument for that. But Steinbach, as they've started off as the top team in the Winnipeg High School Hockey League's Platinum Promotions Division, it started from day one that they showed they were here to play.
A tire, 7 seconds remain on this man advantage. Akuta signaling their bench at least to get fresh legs out, as we are back to even strength now. Sent towards the net, in front, scores! Wasn't on the power play, it was after that. Back and send it right back down low into the Regional Sabres, and no icing call on the play. Here's a chance for the Kudas. They take advantage of bad puck management, and is this the start of a potential comeback for the Barracudas, who have been playing their best hockey yet during this third? You can not pass into the high slot, but denied was Sacco. Sent number 4 in freeze, tries to catch up to it, has a man with him, and Zelensky, who scores! Veristiak.
And a big victory for Steinbach to start off their season, winning over College Belleville by a score of 5-1. And yeah, Steinbach 4-1, only a point up on Vincent Massey with a game in hand, but really good stats to start off. 17 goals for, only 9 goals against through 5 games. And it's for this not this Pistons team, as they played in the Pistons home rink at the Southeast Event Center, but for this Sabres team, Jaeger Buchert, number 15, heading into the season, he was going to be a big-time player for this team, and he's tied for second on the team in points, but players like Taryn Perreault have stepped up. Daniel Schroeder from the back end, who's tied with Buchert for the team lead in points, and other players like Kyler Veristiak, who ended up scoring that goal that we ended up showing you last in those highlights that just played. Buchert Gunther and Thiessen for this team, as well as Zuev, all with goals. Same with Dirksen. So they're getting it from multiple players right now. Jager Bukert, I think, will only heat up more. Seems like more of a pass-first player, though, right now, as he's got 4 assists to make up those 5 points. But, yeah, Steinbach, really strong to start off the season, and their goaltending has been pretty solid, too. Notably, Cash Amore, who has a .980 save percentage through 2 games played, and as well as a shutout. But we'll move into some C Division action now. As well, we're only going to show you one clip here, but it's from the undefeated Lorette Scorpions, and we had the pleasure of being there for their first game of the season, where they won 3-0 over the John Taylor Pipers, and to score their first game of the season, Lorette, they get it from, well, a player with time almost running out, about 2 seconds remaining in the period. Number 11, Carson Bagley, would finish off a beautiful play made by Lorette to snipe the first goal of the year.
With 10 seconds remaining now, John Taylor just trying to send this out. Held at the point by Lang. No hand pass called. Legal play into the slot. Wide open. Dangle scores! Carson Bagley puts his Scorpions on the board for the first time this season. As we finally see our first goal of this hockey game, 1.6 seconds remaining in the second period of action.
That was number 11, Carson Bagley, not sniping, rather deking that puck past Edgington for John Taylor, who was the starter in that matchup. By the way, he put on one heck of a performance in that Husky Classic, which we'll show you a highlight from that matchup coming up soon here in this podcast, or I guess a bit later on, since there's still the tiers to get into before we get into the Husky Classic. But yeah, Carson Bagley, he's one of the few, or not few, but many weapons that this John Taylor Pipers team have to go up against on opening day for themselves, and that many teams are going to have to deal with, all teams are going to have to deal with in the Price Division this season, because it's not only Bagley that can beat you on this squad, but also players like Grayson Carrier. When we talk about Gavin Denny as well, he has 3 goals. Ryland Brownrigg. And then they even have the defense stepping up in terms of Milo Allison and Benjamin Watson, who have scored goals. Same with Cole Hogue. This team has 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players with at least a goal so far, and it's not just the forwards but the defense, as I mentioned, that are getting involved for this team. And then when you pair that with the defense this team is playing and how Carter Ellick has looked in net, Cole Ellens, even though save percentage 846 in the one matchup he played, giving up 2 goals on 13 shots, he was able to come away with the win. And yeah, Lorette, I think, early season indications are that this team is going to be quite a threat for a lot of teams, even the top dogs in Niverville. It's going to be very exciting when those 2 teams are going to be matching up against each other. But we're going to throw it back to the A Division, and this was a special game for myself, though I never played on the College Belleville Barracudas. It was special to be there for their homecoming game, as it's their first home game of the season. The vibes were high, positive, in a rink that only filled up as the game went along. They had the lights off before the game. Belleville ends up introducing their players one by one with some cool special effects, some lights, and yeah, plenty of pregame ceremonies happened at the school beforehand during the day. And for this team, they were going up against probably their biggest rival, at least this season, in College Jean Sauvé, as, yeah, for, well, one of the first times I think the first time since the College Belleville program has come back. They ended up facing off against each other in College Belleville's home opener, and it was cool to also see, of course, former Belleville players that were on College Jean Sauvé's bench coaching in this game, and their head coach in Dominic Corcels, and then assistants in Alexander Filion and Nathan Agar, and happy to show you these highlights now.
With 10 seconds. Shot turned aside by Trey Shell. Rebound there, put away for the Kudos to get the scoring started here. Number 14 and Lucas Bear, I believe that was, following up on the rebound of Seawalk. Back up its pass to Baker. Sends it back down low, now sent across. Middleton scores! A power play bomb from number 10. Gets the score even at one apiece. A CJS strikes on their second. McCoy can't quite cradle it though, sends it back to Drewy. Backhand feed across the Middleton, what a feed and what a snipe, tied at 2 apiece now. 12:08 remaining in this second period. Middleton from a familiar spot. The spectators behind the CJS net that were making that banging noise as the Kudas step in. Wolitsky, what a move. His shot scores! So good it gets stuck in the mesh of the net. Occupied by Trey Shaw. What a snipe from number 13. Shot off the pad of Seawalk. Seawalk turns it aside into the corner as the Olympians circle up again into the high slot. Middleton scores! It's a hattie for number 10.
And that game ended up, of course, going to the College Belleville Barracudas, as for Belleville, they would end up defeating their rivals in CJS by a score of 4-3. CJS with 3 power play goals in that game, and they were all scored by number 10, which that's a fantastic number to wear for Mr. Middleton. As for Ethan to start off this season, he leads his CGS Olympians in points. They just recently won a tournament this past weekend against teams that were not from the Winnipeg High School Hockey League, but I think, the way they dominated in the fashion they did, that's great for CGS's confidence moving forward. As for College Belleville, though, heading into that matchup, they had just come off of a win against the Westwood Warriors, who, of course, yes, they've started off the season slow, and it's a younger team this year, but for Belleville, after the first matchup they had against Sandbach, they got dominated for most of that game, woke up a bit in the third period, but it wasn't nearly enough to beat a team of that caliber, right? And in terms of the Sabres, so to see them bounce back against Westwood and then be able to persevere through a bit of adversity in that game against CJS was huge for the Barracudas, a team that starts off 3-1-1 this season, a team that, of course, returns 15 players to their group, so it's a very experienced team, and it's a team that seems to respond very well from losses so far this year. As sure, they did drop back-to-back, losing 3-2 to Oak Park in a shootout, which that's very impressive because, as you'll see coming up, I feel very highly about Oak Park to start off this season. They lose 4-1 to River East the next game, which was the week later, so last week on the Tuesday on the 28th of October. But then they come back and win 5-4 in a shootout against a team that has looked, maybe not the most consistent throughout their games, but strong nonetheless this season in the Garden City Gophers. So that resiliency is huge for Belleville, especially early in the season, builds character, and I think it just puts things in place for potential good things to happen come playoff time, because playoffs, anything can happen, and if you're able to go through these types of games to start off the season, where notably against the CGS Olympians, as we just showed you're able to hold on, that's big time if you can build on that. And Belleville since then has only gotten one win out of their past few games, but competitive in 2 of the 3 on the scoreboard. That game against Riveris, it slipped away from them a bit, losing 4-1. Belleville back in action this Thursday at home against St. Paul's. As for CJS, they're going to be back in action coming up on next Thursday against the Sturgeon Heights Huskies. As we're going to show you one more set of highlights as before we get into the tiers of where the teams are placed in the divisions. This is the College L'Oreal Voyageurs, and much like they dominated in the Price Division last year en route to winning a championship, it's kind of feeling like deja vu right now. And, well, I think for the Springfield Sabres, they found out how good this team still is, truly.
Of Robertson, as we're back to even strength as well now. And now off to the races again. Here we go. Allard Bradley, fresh out of the penalty box, scores! Oh, how about another 7 spot, L'Oreal says. And what if it's from number 7? And it is an Allard Bradley, fresh out of the penalty box. Once again, L'Oreal able to get behind the Springfield defense. Oh, cut back towards his own bench at center ice. Now weaves his way through Gosselin. What a move. Number 4 scores! My goodness, mastery from 1 and number 4. In Miguel Gosselin for the L'Oreal Voyageurs.
And those are only a few of the great plays, a couple of the great plays, I guess, that they made in that game. And they had 7 different goal scorers. Number 15 and Nicholas Crindle had a hat trick. And this group, even though they gave up 34 shots, Ben Gagne was very solid in goal. And, got to remember that this was a team that was very much built on offense last season. It's looked the very same to start off this year, even though it's been said that they have more natural defensive talent this season. But, yeah, if we look at it, this team's been very good at keeping the puck out of the back of their net so far. 13 goals against only. They're 5-0, 40 goals for in 5 games played, which is incredible. That's like 8 goals per game on average for this team. And yeah, much like Niverville in the Price Division, L'Oreal, even though Gabriel is 4-1, right? Just looking at that goals against differential, that's pretty ridiculous at 27. So yeah, this team is buzzing to start off this season. And if we take a look at the point totals, again, much like Niverville in the C Division, this team has many weapons that can beat you. Tatro, Cavell, just to name 2 in that category, but of top 5 point getters in the league. Yeah, for CLR in terms of players who can beat you, they got plenty outside of Tatro and Cavell. Is just pulling up their statistics right now to give you the full stats. Jacob Traeger, Jesse Traeger, Jonah Allard Bradley, who only has 2 goals but 8 assists, right? So he's making plays, not only putting the puck in the back of the net, but also doing a good job of setting up his teammates, as he's got the team lead for assist. And in terms of how many players have scored for this team, the defense have been getting involved, as there's been 9 different goal scorers for L'Oreal this season. And yeah, 3 of them have been defensemen, in terms of Luca Gosselin, who had that beautiful goal, or rather that was Miguel Gosling in the highlights we showed you. Luca has 2 goals for Davino Lafreniere. Ends up having 2 goals as well, right? So again, they're getting contributions from all around the lineup, and as we take a look at their goaltending, Ben Gagner with a 4-0 record. Prescott, in his one start, he was able to come out with the win in a game where they only allowed 10 shots against. So for this team, they're winning in many different ways so far this season. They just won in their closest game last week of the year against Dakota, winning 5-4, and that's huge for this team because, yeah, we'll get into them coming up here more, but it's huge that they're able to do it against one of the best teams in the league on paper. As Dakota has a pretty strong group this year in the B division. So yeah, that's all for the highlights for now. We're going to be showing you one more set of highlights. It has to do with the Husky Classic coming up a bit later, but we're going to be going into the tiers of the teams throughout these different divisions, starting with the A division, going all the way down to the C division. Of course, talking about all 3. Coming up next as we'll send it to a commercial break, or no, we'll send it to a promo screen first off, maybe another commercial break coming up later, but stick around. It's episode 8 of the Scholasticks Podcast, and it's right here on G Show Productions on gshow.ca. And welcome back to this edition of the Winnipeg High School Hockey League podcast, Scholastics. So let's get into the tiers, shall we? As I mentioned it earlier, how it's going to work, and we're actually going to show you the first example here. So as you can see, we kind of separated all teams into just different categories. Yeah, I'll explain myself right away. So just from what I've seen so far, Vincent Massey to me is easily the heavy favorite in this division, even though they're in second place right now. It doesn't really mean much, to be honest, that they are. I think they have a very good chance to move up to first place once both teams play equal games in terms of them and Steinbach, given that they're only a point back and a win warrants you 3, right? Vincent Massey 4-0 to start off the season. Steinbach is 4-1, and one of Massey's wins did come in overtime. That was against Oak Park, Friday, October 17th. Yes, their matchup to start off this week against Lord Selkirk maybe wasn't their strongest performance, as they only won 4-2, but they had a longer road trip in. Selkirk actually got off to the lead, but Massey persevered. So in all the games I've seen them play in this season, they found ways to win in every single situation. The only time they haven't won was a tie to Oak Park in pool play of the Husky Classic, and that game goes to overtime. Maybe it could have been anyone's game, but Vincent Massey, just their effort and their skill to be able to respond the way they did is huge, and just showed that this team doesn't really flinch in the face of adversity. And the most recent example of that was being down against Lord Selkirk and then starting to pick up their game as it went along to get that 4-2 win. The thing about Vincent Massey, out of any team I've seen them play against so far, with the exception of maybe the Oak Park Raiders, they've outskated teams. They've been able to outnumber teams more often than not in every single area of the ice. Good luck generating on rush chances against this team. It's very difficult. They do a very good job defending the prime scoring areas in their own end. They have defense that can jump up into the play and get involved. Trevor Johnstone, their captain, is a prime example of this, as he's one of the top point getters in the league right now and leads their team in points with 10. And there's so many players on this team that can move the puck from the back end. Players like Adam Blair, Miles Joss, right? Kyle Peters, too, who has 2 assists on the season in 4 games played. And not only do they have that skill from the back end, but they have a bunch of skill up front, as Aiden DeLay and Carter Kaxmars are leading the way on this team in points. But they don't just have those guys up front that can beat you. They have guys like Gavin Savage, Colby Brew, Garnet Van Graff, who's a physical force out there for his team from what we've seen so far, William Badger, the list goes on. It's just they got so many weapons that can beat you, and then once you are able to get their opportunities or your opportunities on them, their goaltender in Noah Barnes or Nathan Dick usually do shut the door. They don't give up many shots in a game, and this team right now, it just looks like in every game I've seen, they're a step above the competition, defending champs with a good core of returning players coming back this season, and they're going to be a tough out. They won 4-2 yesterday and didn't even play their best game from the sounds of it, and I know that was against a 1-win team in Lord Selkirk, but any team can beat you on a given day, I feel like, in this division if you don't come ready to play. That's how skilled it is, and Vincent Massey has just been doing the little things a bit better than everyone else so far this year. As for teams that are in championship contender status, I think Oak Park and Steinbach are there. I think for Oak Park, given that they only lost 3-2 to Vincent Massey, they both play pretty similarly. Both teams that move the puck really well, defend well in their own zone. Oak Park very similar to Massey in those ways, and they're very strong in all ends. They have pretty solid goaltending too. This is a team that I think their pace, alongside a team like Steinbach, these are why these teams have been so good this season, and just how their motors have been revving right. But yeah, just taking a look at both those teams, given how Steinbach is near the top, or is at the top of the division, they've shown pretty strong results so far this season, would put them in the championship contender status. As for the teams on the cusp, and this is interesting because River East has shown that they can go out and beat top-end teams like Steinbach. The only team to beat Steinbach has been River East, but to me, I don't know. River East in their game, I think there's a bit of inconsistencies right now. In that first loss of the season at Garden City, I didn't feel like they particularly defended the front of their net as well as they could have sometimes. And I do like their goaltenders, but sometimes this season compared to the top-end teams, goaltenders have let in some weak ones. So yeah, River East, when they do bring their best, they've shown that they can beat some of the best teams in this league, but there's also been points at times this season where, 1 minute they look like they're outplaying you, and then the next minute they're kind of getting hemmed in their own zone. As for Garden City, they're very comeback heavy right now. They've had a lot of come from behind victories so far this season in tournament play, and a few in the league, the most recent one coming yesterday against Shaftesbury, and they got a lot of skill. Just how do you put up a more consistent type of 60 minutes? Beliveau, CJS, and Miles Mack. Miles Mack, for me, I haven't seen them yet. This team has started off really strong in the standings. However, as for Miles Mack, they start off with a 2-0 record, a 2-0-1 record as they've lost in a shootout. I guess the reason I have them on the cusp right now is because, the teams they've beat are the only winless teams in the league, and then the team they lost to was CJS, and for CJS, even though they're a team that's been able to string together 3 wins, they're still, I think, figuring themselves out and putting things together. They've lost to teams like Shaftesbury, as well as, losing to College Belleville. I think for College Belleville, the 2 losses in a row, even though they came close against Oak Park, losing 4-1 against River East, kept them in this grouping too. They could move up into championship contender status as the season goes up. I like their experience. I like their skill and how they're starting to play a more aggressive style of hockey, and playing with more pace as the season has gone along, but they still have to prove it, I think, against those top end teams. And even though their wins, they've been impressive, they haven't totally been convincing too this year. And as for Sturgeon Heights, as for why they're on the cusp, yes, they're 3-0, but as talked about earlier, even though they've had some good goaltending, they've kept the goals against down, and the offense has come through for them in big moments so far this season. I just have trouble putting them in championship contender status because I don't think one line is going to do it. Most of their offense has come from that top line of Therian, Anderson, and Murphy to start off this year, and I just feel like you're going to need more. That was proven in the final against the Vincent Massey Trojans, where they lost 8-0 in the final of the Husky Classic. Yeah, I think that for Sturgeon Heights, hey, maybe one line will be enough for this team. I could very well see them, making a Final Four run. But in terms of who I think truly contends for a championship, I think they're just outside right now. And if they can start to get other pieces of their lineup going, Sturgeon Heights can move up. And all of these teams can move up, of course. As for the Royals, Shaftesbury, St. Paul's, and Westwood, pretty self-explanatory. St. Paul's and Westwood, 0-4 right now in their first 4 games. Shaftesbury and the Royals, they only have 1 win apiece. But I think for all of these teams, there's things to like in their games. They're showing good compete still. The Royals yesterday, this is a team that went toe-to-toe with Vincent Massey and actually led them to start off the game, right? So all these teams are showing good things. Shaftesbury yesterday let it slip away against Garden City. They've played against some pretty tough opponents and haven't fared too well this year. Teams like Oak Park, Vincent Massey, right, have beat up on them pretty good. And as for St. Paul's and Westwood, St. Paul's finally scores their first 2 goals of the season last week. Westwood competes to the end against the Royals. But, yeah, given these teams' records right now, they all combine for 2 wins. They're in the work in progress category. As those are the stats from the B division. And we'll show you their tiers right now as we move on to the Winnipeg Free Press division. Yeah, heavy favorites right now. How can it not be Louis Riel? This team is, like I said, getting contributions all around the lineup at this point. A team that has the best goal differential by far in the B division, and a team that is not only winning in blowouts, but shown that they can win in a closer game against a team in Dakota, which, they look very strong to start off the season. Beat one of the top teams in the standings in J.H. Bruns 7-2 back on the 21st. So, yeah, Dakota, they're in championship contender status. Just simply, they start off 3-1, and all their wins have been pretty convincing so far, and even against top-end competition, right? Like J.H. Bruns, who, once again, we'll show you the standings, starts off as the 3rd-place team in the league. Dakota looking to sneak past them very shortly here, as they'll won't be back in action until next Monday, actually, so they'll have to wait a bit to play more games. But all of these teams' schedules will pick up before we know it. Some already have. But yeah, I like Dakota's team. They've started off pretty strong. It's a team that was in the A division last year, got bumped down to the B division, and they're seeing a lot of players stepping up and scoring. Lots of players with multiple goals right now. In fact, 6 different players with at least 2 goals, one of those being a defenseman in Ashton McCollum, and they're also getting strong goaltending from Brady Cawson, who is 2-0 and .965 save percentage through his 2 games, and Ethan Sinclair, even though he's under 900, his save percentage, he's at .878, so he looks to pick up his game as the season goes along. But they have the pieces in place, I think. Same with the Springfield Sabres, who I think they lack a bit of consistency right now in their game when taking a look at Springfield, as they start off 3-1. But yeah, Of course, winning 4-2 over Calvin to start off the season, then falling 11-3 to Springfield. That's tough, and something you definitely are a bit disappointed in, given that you started off the season on a high note. You won your homecoming tournament, and then, I guess you know what you're in for the rest of the season with that loss against Learell, right? Dropping it 11-3. You know that there was a lot of times in that game where Springfield wasn't playing their best hockey up to their best capabilities, and they learned from that in their next two games. And the reason why they're in the championship contender status right now is because champions, one of the, I feel like, makeups of a champion, one of the marks of a champion is that ability to bounce back, and they do so in big fashion, as Gabriel was 4-0 heading into their matchup against Springfield last Wednesday. Springfield, after getting dummied 11-3, comes away with a 5-3 win against them, and then follows it up with a 7-1 win over the Churchill Bulldogs, who themselves, they ended up having a strong victory over CPET earlier on in the week. So Springfield, they're 3-1, one of the top teams in the league to start things off, and their ability to bounce back after facing a bit of adversity, I think, is huge, and why I put them in championship contender status. As for Gabriel, they were 4-0 before that loss against Springfield, one of the top teams in the league. I wouldn't say they're the favorites, but championship contender status for sure, no doubt about it. This team's been led by Logan Barnaby, and I think that the one flaw in this team has maybe been their depth scoring so far, as Barnaby has 15 goals. So yeah, you can make an argument that maybe this team, come playoff time, as the season goes along, maybe they could decrease, but outside of Barnaby, people on this team are still putting the puck in the net. Colin Legacy, or Lagos. Man, I feel like I just butchered that name. Embarrassing. I went to a French immersion school. Just shows how bad my French has become pronouncing some of these names. But yeah, Caleb Collette, 2 goals. Oscar LaFond also with 2 goals on the forward side of things. Same with Brody Moutre and Grayson Bland, Maxim Herbert, Noah Bott. So you kind of get the point, right? Even though Barnaby has the bulk of this team's goals, players are still stepping up. Now, you'd like to see, of course, this continue for Gabois, and I think there's a high chance it does. It seems like a very skilled team on paper this season, and they also have a defenseman that has been pretty darn good to start off the season offensively, in Austin Baudette, who has 3 goals in 5 games. Tied second on the team in points too, which I think they gotta love that. And then goaltending wise, like Liam Girardin, with a 2-0 record, a 912 save percentage. He hasn't played all of the games. Derek Poirier has, and his save percentage isn't the greatest, but still a 2-1 record. They got to feel confident knowing that they of course got Poirier, who they can rely on, but Girardin as well, who has showed up strong big time to start off this year. So yeah, that's kind of why those 3 teams are in championship contender status. As for why J.H. Bruns is on the cusp, even though this team is 3rd in the league, you take a look at their wins. They've been close to start off the season, and it's huge. They've been able to win those, but they've come against, a bit of the lesser competition in the league, and when they've played better competition in terms of Dakota, 7-2 loss against CSLR, who is the last place team in the league. They were only able to beat them 6-5. They come away with a 4-0 victory in their rematch last Thursday, as the home and home went Wednesday and Thursday. But yeah, I feel like J.H. Bruns, until they can start to win more convincingly against teams that are ranked a bit lower in the standings, middle of the pack to lower, I think that I'll put them higher, because I feel like the teams in the top 2 categories here have just done a few more impressive things compared to J.H. Bruns to start off this season. As for Churchill, CPET, as well as Calvin. I guess I'll start off with Calvin. Haven't had a chance to really cover them this season. That's why I kind of got them on the cusp, and they beat Churchill 7-0, right? But yeah, against the top contenders, they've been close in the scores. Like, they lose 4-2 against Springfield, then 5-2 against Gabrois a few weeks ago. This team has proven that they can stay in it with, some of the more talented teams in the league, and of course that 7-0 win over Churchill was pretty convincing for them to start off the season back on October 15th. But will be interesting. This team is going to be going up against Louis tomorrow, and they've had about 2 weeks off of league play, so yeah, that is going to be a big test for them. And if they're able to maybe make it close and even win it and shock Louis, could go a long way to them moving up into the championship contender category heading into next month's edition of this podcast. That'll be similar to this. But as for CPET and Churchill, teams that have been able to win some games so far this season, teams that do have the skill, but teams that have played inconsistent. We saw it with CPET last week and Churchill. Churchill dominates them, CPET doesn't give their best, and then CPET wins in their next game, Churchill gets blown out in their next game, right? So yeah, that's why they're on the cusp. I think that they're not quite a work in progress, a bit better than that, but still, I think not quite in championship contender status. As for Stonewall, Sanford, SJR, CSLR, teams that are all a work in progress, much like the A division. These are all one-win teams, and CSLR is actually the only team without a win so far. Teams that have been struggling defensively, not as much SJR, as they've given up 17 goals compared to the other three that have given up over 20, but yeah, great to see some of these games being close for some of these teams, but as for CSLR, a team that made it to the championship last season, it just shows you what a year's difference can make, because yeah, this is a team that, besides that game against JH Bruns, haven't really been close in their games. But SJR, they showed that they can compete with an A division team in Sturgeon Heights, for example, in the Husky Classic. Sanford, for this team, haven't had a chance to really cover them yet this year. But this is a team that, when taking a look at their schedule, for example, after getting blown out 3 games in a row, they're able to respond with a 3-1 win over SJR, for example. And then, of course, for the Stonewall Rams, this is a team that, even though things have started off bleak this year, they've been somewhat competitive in the games that they've played in. They were able to beat JH Bruns 3-2 in a shootout back on October 17th. So, like the teams in the A division, there is still some things to like about each of these teams. And yeah, who knows, maybe they can start to turn the page as this season goes along. As I'll show you the standings one more time here from throughout the league as we head into our next division here coming up very soon. But yeah, CLR, the team to beat right now. CSLR, finalists last year, looking to get things going here soon, as their next matchup is going to be coming up this Thursday as they take on Springfield at the Dakota Community Center. As for Dakota, they won't be back in action until next Monday. Louis looking to keep themselves undefeated tomorrow against Calvin. And also just looking at the points totals, Logan Barnaby, ridiculous stat line. Same with Luca Tatro, John Thomas Cavell as well, as we already showed you. And the goaltenders looking really strong to start off this season within this top 5 of goaltenders. Check out winnipeghshl.ca for more details there. As we're going to get into the C division now. And for this one, couldn't really decide because, one, I haven't watched Murdoch McKay play, except that's going to change coming up on Friday, as we got their matchup between them and the Windsor Park Royals. But yeah, for Niverville and Lorette, for those teams, I mean, undefeated to start off the season. I know that Warren is too, but Warren to start off the year, you know, I don't, like, you could put them into the favorites. I think that, yeah, I put them into championship contender status so far. I haven't seen Niverville play yet, but I just feel like when I saw Lorette play, it just seems like they were a touch stronger than Warren was. I like the puck control and the puck movement that Lorette had in their game against John Taylor, where Warren had great puck movement as well, but they also took advantage of a lot of mistakes that were made by Kildonan East, where I felt as, you know, the pressure was great from Warren in that game, but sometimes I felt like Kildonan East had a bit more time than they thought they didn't have, I guess, and they ended up throwing the puck away errantly more so compared to, I feel like Lorette looked like a bit more of a faster team to me, a team that has a lot of depth, much like Warren, and a team where both of these squads have been getting great goaltending so far, but just given their record and given that Lorette, just taking a look at their schedule, has, I guess, just throughout their games, won more convincingly overall to start off the season, just a tad. That's why I guess I put them a bit over the Warren Wildcats. But as for the favorites, getting back to it, as for Niverville, like, this is a team to start off this year that has been absolutely ridiculous. They only had really one close game, and that was to Linden Christian to start off the season, winning 4-3. But since then, this team has put up at least 7 goals in all of their games. They got plenty of weapons that can beat you. It's a team that, you know, like all the top teams throughout the divisions, have played just a complete brand of hockey so far to get them off to such a strong start this year. Of course, they'll be going up against Edward Schreier not until November 18th, so quite a bit of time off in the league for Niverville. I'm sure they're going to have some tournament action for themselves coming up throughout that time, but yeah, I mean, what else is there to say? This team's a wagon to start off this year. Same with Lorette, who they have a lot of depth, a lot of guys that can beat you. 18 goals for, 3 goals against to start off this year. Warren 3-0 to start off this year. Like I said, I think having him there, I guess one of the reasons I also had Warren here is because in one of their wins, they won 2-0 against Murdoch McKay. I haven't seen Murdoch play this year, but I assume this team is going to be one of the stronger teams in the Price division and are looking like championship contenders right now. As for Murdoch, they've started off the year at 3-1 and have won pretty convincingly in all of their games, maybe outside of the one against Edward Schreier, which it was only 3-1 for Murdoch. But yeah, given that, I haven't seen Warren play against Lorette and Niverville, and really I'm just not sure how the teams outside of these top two, in terms of Niverville and Lorette, how the teams that are going to go up against them are going to stack up against them, right, just as of yet. So I think I'll have more of a clear picture, and maybe we start to put Warren, maybe even Murdoch in the favorites list. But yeah, as for now, they're just solely in championship contenders. As for the teams on the cusp, teams that have done some solid things so far, the Linden Christian Wings, West K Wolverines, and Edward Schreier Barons. All of these teams, when they've gone up against the better teams in the league, have played mostly competitive hockey for the most part, and I think that's huge, especially early on in the season, and those are, moments you can build on, even though you might have not come away with victories in those games. But West K has started off with like a 3-1 record. Linden Christian has been competitive against, like I said, on opening day against Niverville, and even though they've been competitive, I just feel like they're on the cusp right now because they haven't exactly been as consistent as I feel like they could be. And as for Edward Schreier, they've started off with a 1-2 record, but taking a look, only a -3 goals against average, and they've been able to go out and challenge a team like Murdoch McKay, right? That's in the championship contender status in that category, and play them in a close one down in Beausejour, only losing 3-1. So those teams have shown promise against some of the top end teams in the league to start off this year, and then I just feel like these other 5 teams, it's a work in progress, like all the other categories that already been talked about from all of the other 2 divisions, like Lundar, Pinawa, and Windsor Park, for example, don't have wins yet. Kildonan East and John Taylor only have 1 victory. I do gotta say though, like John Taylor, compared to the first game I saw them against Lorette, where it wasn't great for this team. They've been a lot more competitive as this season's gone along. They had a fantastic moment at the Husky Classic, as mentioned, and they even went out and beat Edward Schreier, right? So yeah, like against the top end teams, they haven't fared as well. They lost 6-1 to Murdoch, 7-1 to Niverville, 3-0 to Lorette, of course, in their opening game. But they've gone out, they've beat a B Division team a few weekends ago now. They went out, they beat Edward Schreier, who is near the middle of the pack in this league, so that's huge for them. And then Kildonan East, starting off with 0 goals in their first 2 games played, well, they come away with a huge win over the Windsor Park Royals, which, for the Royals, this is a team that, for them, even though they start off 0-4 on the season, a team that has some talent up front. Yeah, I think for this team, out of all the teams I've seen so far, the effort was maybe lacking the most from them, but that's just motivation to look back on these games and the results so far to know that, hey, there is some skill on this team. We saw big saves from their goaltending from... it was Panko and net who ended up bailing out his teams more time than not, but maybe that'll give them some inspiration, getting big saves, knowing that they have some players like Nicholas Jones, for example, that can put the puck in the back of the net. Rally around guys like that and the other skill players they have, and yeah, look to maybe not look for wins exactly right now, but just look for better and better efforts as the season goes along, and maybe, just maybe, this work in progress in the Windsor Park Royals can start to trend into the direction where they go into the on the cusp category of things. But yeah, these have been the divisions that we've been showing you from the Winnipeg High School Hockey League, finishing off with the Price division, as we'll show you the standings one last time here. Windsor Park 0-5 to start off the season, as they're 0-5-0. Of course, coming up this week, Windsor Park is going to be looking to change that up, as well. They'll be in action on Friday at home, facing off against Murdoch McKay. Check out the Winnipeg High School Hockey League's website, winnipeghshl.ca, for all the details, of course, and of course the stats leaders to start things off this season in the Price division. As we're going to send it to one more commercial break, and then I'll be back here to showcase some highlights from the Husky Classic. Some of the best plays, that is, and talking about that tournament a bit. To end things off here on episode 8 of the Scholasticks Podcast on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca.
Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store.
Welcome back to the Winnipeg High School Hockey League podcast. Thank you to those that have tuned in to this one. And just checked over in the live chat and was mentioned that Luca Tetro had 102 points last year in 24 games, which, that's pretty insane. I remember seeing that last year, and him, along with the rest of that L'Oreal Voyageurs squad, are, like I said, looking like a wagon to start off this season. They'll be back in action, of course, coming up this week. So once again, we'll take a look at the upcoming schedule, but they'll be in action coming up. That was the C division they were in last year. But against Calvin this Wednesday at 4 p.m. in the Icebox at Notre Dame Arena. Quite cold in that arena. Even though they put on the heaters, it's still feels like an icebox, to be honest with you. But the Husky Classic, a tournament that showcases some of the best teams from around high school hockey, and there are even some out-of-town teams, the Morden Thunder. And I guess they're from Manitoba. There was one true team from out of province in the Fort Francis Muskie that ended up competing in this 4-day event. And the way it worked is there were 4 pools of play. Each team got 3 preliminary games. Then they'd move on to a playoff style type of bracket. So if you ended up winning your group, you'd be placed into the A-side semifinals. Second place in each group would go to the B-side semis. Third would be C-side semis, and D-side semis would be the fourth place teams. And if you ended up winning in the first place games out of the division winners, you'd move on to the Sunday matchups. Or the one Sunday matchup, which would be the gold medal game. And then as for the teams in the B-side semis, the winners of those would move on to play in one final game in their finals. So B-side final, C-side final, as well as D-side final on the Sunday as well before the gold medal game. And it was a competitive weekend throughout. There were some blowouts, there were some teams that got outmatched, but like mentioned, like the John Taylor Pipers in the D-side final for themselves. They beat a B division team from the Winnipeg High School Hockey League in the Stonewall Rams. Garden City Gophers go up against the Oak Park Raiders in the B-side semis. And Oak Park, in my opinion, outside of Vincent Massey, looked like the strongest team throughout that weekend. Well, Garden City, they do get a bit of penalty help as they go on a few power plays. They tie it up in the dying moments of the third period. They're able to score 2 unanswered goals in that third period to get the game tied up at 5, sent into overtime. They were still on the power play, and they end up winning it and going through to the B-side finals, and they end up winning that as well. And as for Garden City, like, it's tournaments like this for that team, same with the John Taylor Pipers, where moments like that, it's memories that are created, and not only that, but things you can build on moving forward into your upcoming events and upcoming games this season. But I liked a lot of what I saw during that tournament, a lot of skill on display. Thought that Fort Francis had a very impressive team that challenged every single team in their pool in terms of River East, Garden City, and trying to also think off the top of my head. Let's go back to look at the pools here. One moment. Churchill was also in that pool too, in the A pool. Steinbach was the winner of the B division pool. River East was the winner of the A division pool, or the A pool. Pool C was Vincent Massey, and Pool D, the winners of that ended up being the Sturgeon Heights Huskies. And very impressed from what I saw from teams like Steinbach, just looking at their results. Vincent Massey and Oak Park, like I said, I thought they were the top two teams in the whole tournament. And, if Oak Park was in another pool, you could make a very strong argument that they would have won it. And that was the only team that even came close to Vincent Massey throughout the weekend, as they ended up tying them in their preliminary round game. But was impressed from what I saw from Lord Selkirk too throughout that pool play, as Lord Selkirk ended up finishing off the tournament strong and actually ended up upsetting Shaftesbury to deny them a chance of potentially winning the pool, as Shaftesbury and Sturgeon Heights tied each other to start off the Husky Classic. But very entertaining. And also, even though Stonewall, their tournament ended in disappointment, they started off losing in that tournament 13-1 to Vincent Massey, and then every single game for them got closer afterwards, so that was also great to see. But as for the Husky Classic, as these were the plaques given to the B-side winners in Garden City, as well as the A-side winners. So we can see there too, B division for the girls, and there was also an A division for the girls, which Fort Francis, their Muskie female team, won that. This was a look at the past tournament winners. And as for the Vincent Massey Trojans, as you'll see in just a moment, they ended up repeating as A-side champions, but the Churchill Bulldogs ended up winning the B-side championship. This was a group that was undermanned throughout that weekend, had players missing time due to competing in football championships on the Friday. St. Paul's finally started to see some goal scoring that past weekend, or in that weekend, as they had no goals heading into that weekend in the league games that they had played in. They ended up finishing their tournament strong and became B-side champions. All of those photos can be seen on the Sturgeon Heights Husky Instagram page, by the way. But as for Garden City, they ended up coming through, winning the B-side championship, but no championship was bigger than this one for Vincent Massey. Not only do they win in dominant fashion, 8-0 over Sturgeon Heights, but they went back-to-back as they won this tournament back in 2024, and it was pure dominance from Vincent Massey, as they only allowed 4 goals throughout the weekend, scored a ton, and throughout the playoffs they didn't allow any goals, shut out River East 3-0 en route to making the final against Sturgeon Heights, and of course and off with 8 to Sturgeon Heights 0 in the finals. And that weekend, it just seemed at the time, and as time will go along, I'm sure teams will get closer to Vincent Massey. I mean, Lord Selkirk is a prime example, that matchup that they just played against them, but it just seemed like Vincent Massey controlled every aspect of every single game and looked like the clear-cut best team in the province during that Husky Classic, which, for a final time in this episode, we're going to show you some highlights from this event. The best plays from teams like Vincent Massey, also showing you their best plays from the finals, but also from all the other great action that we got a chance to witness from that 4-day tournament at the Hockey for All Center.
Turned over at the blue line. It's along the boards. Now this chase down by Johnstone all the way down into the River East zone. Johnstone gets to that puck first, send it in front, and they score! Short-handed marker for Vincent Massey. What an effort from the captain and Johnstone. As he goes. Be number 10 in Corbett, but he'll lose this puck. And now here's a chance. What a move, Gregory. Can he do it again? Gregory scores! Lachlan Gregory, the Magic Man, puts John Taylor into the D-side final tomorrow morning. Stuns the Stonewall Ram side. Unbelievable drama, even on the D-side here at the Husky Classic. And there was a huge hit along the boards there. Loose puck found by Marcus Betts. He's looking for number 3 in this game. Shot, Murdoch tipped in, scores! Garden City! The comeback kids do it again! He makes their way in to the Oak Park zone. Kellerman off the boards. This gets whipped across. No one there quite yet, except Murdoch swoops in and picks up this loose puck. Murdoch in front, that chance, scores! Garden City, comeback complete in an absolute thriller to stun the Oak Park Raiders and move on to the B-side final tomorrow. So we played middle of the ice. Oh, what a move. That chance denied. Rebound there. Scores! SJR! Improbable. But somehow, someway, they go up 1-0. 8:17 remaining. It's work back to Anderson in front. As Anderson in this top line back out for the Huskies. Anderson scores. Number 13. And Jace Anderson circles back up to the left face-off circle and able to put one past this face-off circle. This draw will be won, and it's back to the captain and Johnstone. Johnstone dishes this off, D to D, that to the left circle, scores! Brew fires one into the back of the net past McDougall, and just like that, Vincent Massey off to a 2-goal lead. Not even for a shorthanded marker, 15 seconds in to the Surgeon Knights power play. Now here's a break, a chance for Savage as he scores! I've done it again, a lethal penalty kill as well as a lethal power play.
And there you have it from the 2025 Husky Classic, some of the best plays. And if you want to rewatch all of the best moments from the Husky Classic, you want to watch these games in full, as we did 12 in total. We have a bundle available on our website still, and all games are still available for purchase. So whether you're a player, a parent of this player, someone that's in this player's family, like their uncle, their auntie, their grandparent, or maybe you're a friend of this player, you're a fan of this team, maybe you're even a player that played on these teams. All of these games are available for you to watch. Do come with a price, of course, but that money goes back to the teams too, so not only supporting us, but supporting the teams as well. And as for how the Huskies are doing, is ESMU Marks had ended up asking how the Huskies are doing so far. Pretty good in the standings. They're 3-0, one of the only undefeated teams remaining in the Platinum Promotions Division. As we take a look at it here once again for these standings, of course, these are the games coming up this week, still in the Platinum Promotions Division. If you want to check them out, be sure to make it down to these arenas. Should be a lot of high-level action again. That's going to be in play throughout all divisions in the Winnipeg High School Hockey League. But as for myself, Graeme the G Show Forsyth, this is where I'm going to say so long. Got to get prepped for the Reavers and Panthers, the Pinawa Panthers, coming into Winnipeg to take on Kildonan East at Gateway Rec Center. We're also going to have Gapawa and Stonewall tomorrow. for you. And on Friday, we got Windsor Park taking on Murdoch McKay as we get a chance to look at Murdoch for the first time this season. But I hope you all enjoyed this edition of the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We've been brought to you by Elite Prospects, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Terrico Goaltenders, and Movement Fitness and Performance. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about just where you'd rank these teams in the tiers that we had in play. Did we have teams too high? Did we have teams maybe too low? Or did we have it just right? Also, give your thoughts on who your favorite team to watch is in the comments, and maybe who your favorite player is to even watch in this league. Would like to hear about it, and maybe we'll start to cover those teams a bit more for the fans, of course, as this podcast is to keep all you Winnipeg High School Hockey League fans informed on what's going on around the league. We got another episode coming out on Friday. Stay tuned for that in episode 9. 3 games, of course, this week. Can't wait to cover them all. I've been your host, Graeme, the gshow Forsyth, giving you the peace out and waving so long, everybody. Also, be sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss any new episodes or releases here on our YouTube channel. As we're signing off now. Take care, everybody.